So has Donald Trump and the United States really obliterated Iran's nuclear program as they claimed? Well, a few days ago, I spoke to former Pentagon official and security expert Wes Bryant on just how effective the U.S. bombing of the Fordo nuke plant was. Listen in to his insider take. You don't believe Iran's nuclear capability has been obliterated by this 12-day war, that they can revive in a couple of months?
Not at all. And we know, we've seen reports, and it's been corroborated that Iran, moved centrifuges out of their main facility in the days before the strikes. Mm-hmm. Often we underestimate the savviness of our adversaries as America as well. And so there's nothing to say that there's not sites that we don't even know about. Iran has known that we've known about these 3 sites that we struck for years now. Are there other sites? There likely are. Where did they take these centrifuges? We're probably trying to figure that out, but it would be naive and overconfident to say that we know all of this intelligence. And so, what these strikes did.
But Wes, the Israeli intelligence seems to have a different picture. They believe that, or their officials are coming on camera to suggest that this war has put Iran's nuclear program back by a couple of years.
Even if it had, which of course is at odds with our intelligence, mm-hmm. But even if it had, what this has done strategically was ensure that Iran, regardless of this regime or the next regime, continues to be an adversary of the West, of the United States, of Israel, really for generations. Mm-hmm. I think with this, with these reckless strikes, with this reckless strike campaign on part of Israel to begin with, and then the really reactionary and I'd say emotional response by the Trump administration to hit these nuclear facilities with no notice. Mm-hmm. I'd say that ensured that Iran feels an immediate threat to their sovereignty, such that they haven't even felt in the past. Mm-hmm. Now we know Iran is as we call it, this axis of terror, mm-hmm. But I believe there's far more strategic methods by which to deal with the Iran problem, and this wasn't one of them. I don't think there was any strategy involved here. I think this was another, grand kind of narcissistic power play on part of Trump. He wants to feel feared. He wants to be respected. He demands admiration, and I think this is another symptom of that. So long-term strategy was just not thought out here.
You're making an interesting point. You're calling it narcissistic power play. There are others who've called this performative diplomacy or performative foreign policy. But are you therefore saying that America could have simply stayed away and allowed Israel and Iran to battle it out with missile strike after missile strike? Was it the Trump administration would claim that it was their action on Sunday that brought an early end to otherwise an escalating conflict?
Yes, I think it's a microcosm, kind of a small example of the same thing we did in World War II, to say that the nuclear weapons that we dropped suddenly stopped the war, and so that was a great thing. These are all.
Trump actually likened it, by the way, Wes, to Hiroshima. Trump today likened what was done to Iran's nuclear sites to what happened in 1945 in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Correct, and and he sent out a video really glorifying war crimes, mm-hmm. And mocking the Iran regime and the drops against the nuclear facilities. Mm-hmm. And so we have this entire culture really that's becoming on par with Israel's military culture, where it becomes no holds barred, disregard for international law. In Israel's case, massive disregard for civilian casualties, which mm-hmm. they're already showing in Iran. Mm-hmm. And again, when we go to war or any conflict against any nation or entity, the mm-hmm. civilian populace should never be our adversary. They're not our adversary. In fact, ideally, we want them to support our cause.
Mm-hmm. So, when we hear reports that the entire Iranian IRGC leadership has been wiped out, Ali Khamenei is in a bunker, the sense that we are being fed is that Iran is on its knees this war has put Iran on its knees. You're giving a very different call. You actually believe that far from the nuclear power being obliterated, far from Iran being on its knees, this may only stir up even more nationalist sentiment and retain Iran's status as a primary adversary to Israel and the United States?
Yes, I think really, starting with the war on Gaza and arguably before that, we've allowed, as Israel's really closest military partner, we've allowed Israel to become essentially a rogue state in the Middle East, exacerbating the existing conflicts. I think Iran's going to continue to wage very robust and very intelligent proxy warfare for generations to come. They will not have any incentive to join any kind of treaty on nuclear non-proliferation at this point. And in fact, their incentive will probably be to nuclearize, even more so than they possibly were previously.
Well, those are very troubling words from you, Wes Bryant, but for sharing your thoughts so openly and giving us a sense of how we should read this rapidly evolving situation, which remains fluid. I thank you for joining me here on the news today. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.